What is up, guys? Delboy here. A quick preview and prediction for one of the most anticipated fights of the year so far, and that fight is obviously Keith Thurman versus Manny Pacquiao. I've got to say, I really am looking forward to this fight. The fight goes down on the 20th of July, and it takes place at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, USA. Keith Thurman's WBA welterweight title will be on the line in this fight, and to me, the winner of this fight goes to number one in the welterweight division. Right now, I do have Errol Spence as the number one guy, mainly due to Keith Thurman's inactivity. Thurman has got a much better resume than Errol Spence, but he's been inactive, and Spence has been fighting a bit more regularly, so that's why he's number one on my list. And obviously Pacquiao, we know his history. If he were to beat Keith Thurman, again for me, he goes number one in the welterweight division. So a lot at stake here, and it's a great fight. Now let's briefly talk about the stats and attributes of both fighters quickly. We'll start with the champion Keith Thurman. He has a record of 29-0, 22 of those 29 wins coming by way of knockout. Manny Pacquiao has an incredible record of 61 wins, 7 defeats, 2 draws, 39 of those 61 wins coming by way of knockout. In regards to the height and reach of both fighters, Keith Thurman is listed as 5'7.5" with a 69-inch reach, whereas Manny Pacquiao is listed as 5'5.5" with a 67-inch reach. So Keith Thurman is a longer, taller guy. He has a 2-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach advantage. Will that play a factor in this fight? Potentially. I'll get into that a bit later. As I mentioned earlier, Manny Pacquiao has had a lot more fights than Keith Thurman. He's a lot more experienced. He's been there, seen it, done it. He's really done it all. There's not really been any scenario in which he hasn't experienced. So experience obviously goes towards Pacquiao. And this really is Keith Thurman's first time at the rodeo. He's never fought on pay-per-view. He's never been in a fight of this magnitude. Yes, the Danny Garcia fight was a big fight. Yes, the Sean Porter fight was a big fight. But nothing in comparison to this. This is a huge moment in Keith Thurman's career. How will he handle the lights? Will the lights be too bright, or will he shine? We will see. Maybe the magnitude of this event could get to Thurman. We've seen that happen before in fights, but we do know Manny Pacquiao is used to this type of fight. He's used to this scenario, so he'll take to this like a duck to water. This is nothing new to him. As I mentioned, he is the much more experienced fighter. So, the experience factor could play a part in this fight. We'll see. In regards to the technical side of things, I really do believe this is a hard fight to predict for a couple of reasons. The first being, what type of shape is Keith Thurman in? And the second being, what type of shape is Manny Pacquiao in? Obviously, Keith Thurman has sustained a lot of injuries over the years. He's been very inactive. Will that take a toll? In his comeback fight against Josecito Lopez, he looked good for the first 3 to 4 rounds, but after that he really tailed off, and he wasn't impressive. He looked extremely vulnerable. Maybe that was due to ring rust, maybe that was just, the first fight back he was rusty, or maybe, just maybe, the injuries have taken their toll. Maybe this guy is already past his prime. I'm not completely ruling that out. It's not like injuries haven't ruined sportsmen in the past. It has happened, and it's happened on numerous occasions. Maybe that could be the case with Keith Thurman. Maybe he's not operating at the same level he was once at. That could be a possibility. Am I expecting that to happen? Not really. I think Keith Thurman will find that next gear for this fight, and he will look a bit more reminiscent of his old self. The Josecito Lopez fight, I just think that was due to ring rust. He was out the ring for nearly 2 years, and Lopez, he's a pressure fighter. He's no slouch. It's not like Keith Thurman didn't show signs of vulnerabilities when he was more active. He's been hurt in fights in the past. He's always been vulnerable. He's always been a guy who has been susceptible to getting hurt. We saw that in the Jesus Soto Caras fight. We also saw that in the Louis Collazo fight. It's not like Keith Thurman hasn't shown moments of vulnerability. You know, he has. Even in his prime, to me, he looked like a guy who was susceptible to maybe being knocked out. And I think Lopez just kind of exposed that further, and that was mainly because Thurman wasn't really operating at 100%. So is Keith Thurman past his best? Have the injuries taken their toll? If I were to hazard a guess, I would say no. I expect him to be better in this fight, but I can't lie, it is something that is in the back of my mind. It's certainly a possibility. As for Manny Pacquiao, you know, Manny Pacquiao is 40 years old. At some point, the wheels will fall off. Pacquiao is now towards that age where, you know, he could get old overnight. Like I said, he's 40 years old. He's had an incredibly long career and a tough career. He's had 70 fights. He's been knocked out in the past. He's been involved in grueling wars coming up through numerous weight classes. He's suffered injuries himself over the years. And in recent years, Manny Pacquiao has obviously slowed down. Maybe he'll slow down even more in this fight. So you do really need to consider that going into this bout. You know, Manny Pacquiao, like I say, he's towards that age where it could all go wrong. Having said that, Manny Pacquiao in training looks quite sharp, still showing that blistering hand speed, looking sharp, looking quick, looking agile, looking in good shape. So the signs look good, but we never really know until these guys get in the ring. And even Manny Pacquiao's previous two performances, he has looked pretty good. He looked good against Lucas Matisse, and I felt he boxed well against Adrian Broner. He pretty much shut Adrian Broner out. So the training footage of Manny Pacquiao looks pretty good. His last couple of performances were fairly impressive. So do I expect Manny Pacquiao to enter the ring to a good standard? Yes, I do. But, you know, you still need to consider the fact this man is 40 years old and he's had a very tough career. Stylistically, I think this fight in 2019 favours Keith Thurman. Manny Pacquiao still has blistering hand speed, great combinations, but I don't think his feet are quite as quick as his hands anymore. Manny Pacquiao back in the day always had quick feet, getting in and out, bamboozling his opponents. And, you know, it wasn't just for hand speed in Manny Pacquiao's heyday, it was also his feet. To me, his feet have slowed right down, and that could be a problem going into this fight. Keith Thurman, I know his footwork isn't the best, but he does have extremely quick feet. There is a difference between foot speed and footwork. Keith Thurman's footwork isn't the best, but he does have good foot speed. And that foot speed these days could give Manny Pacquiao problems. I'm not sure if Manny Pacquiao is adept to chase a fight in 2019, you know, against a guy like Keith Thurman who could offer excessive movement. If Keith Thurman moves on the back foot with a consistent jab and tries to be elusive, he could give Manny Pacquiao problems. You know, if he can make Manny chase the fight, I certainly believe there's a route there for him to win this fight. But, you know, he needs to be careful if he does do that. You can't just run all night, because obviously at that point you do leave yourself open for not doing enough on the cards and maybe you won't get the decision. So, listen, I believe Thurman should fight on the back foot. I believe he should, you know, try to play the outboxer and the mover, but he does need to mix it up. He does need to counter effectively. And as Manny jumps in, Keith Thurman needs to be trying to time him. You know, Thurman's got a lovely right uppercut that I think Manny Pacquiao could be open for as he jumps in. Also, he's got a nice chopping right hand that could also be effective for catching Manny Pacquiao coming in. So Keith Thurman can't afford to be excessively running and trying to be content to steal a decision. I do believe he needs to mix it up. He needs to try and play the counterpuncher in this fight, the back foot counterpuncher. I do think at this stage, Keith Thurman can pull that style off to a point where he could beat Manny Pacquiao on points or maybe even a stoppage. Is Manny Pacquiao's durability what it once was? Not so sure. Since that Marquez knockout, he has been hurt a couple of times. You know, Timothy Bradley rocked Manny Pacquiao, so I think Keith Thurman does hit hard enough to certainly hurt Manny Pacquiao, maybe even knock him out. But yeah, I believe Keith Thurman's route in this fight is fairly straightforward. You know, he needs to fight on the back foot, consistent jab, look for those counterpunch opportunities, and basically don't take any unnecessary risks. don't trade with Manny Pacquiao, because if Keith starts to open up against Manny Pacquiao, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets hurt, dropped, again maybe stopped. Manny Pacquiao has underrated timing, he's got underrated counterpunching ability, and I wouldn't advise Keith Thurman to exchange with even a 40-year-old Manny Pacquiao. I think that could go horribly wrong for him, to be quite honest. So yeah, I think Keith Thurman needs to box a safety-first fight. That may not win him over any new fans, but I just believe stylistically that kind of style gives him the best chance to win. As for Manny Pacquiao, he needs to slow Keith Thurman down as soon as possible. I think a lot of people out there expect Keith Thurman to fight on the back foot. So Manny, for me, needs to make an impression on the body early on. He needs to be looking for body shots. Keith Thurman has gassed in fights in the past, so working the body could be a good idea. And especially given the style Keith Thurman is likely to fight with, body work could be key. So even in the clinch, if Manny has a hand free, work the body. If you can sneak some little shots on the inside in the clinch, do it. Little uppercuts, little hooks, it all adds up. Also, that straight left to the body is a good punch from Manny Pacquiao. Again, that's another shot that Keith Thurman could be susceptible to. Thurman's been hurt to the body in the past, and that straight left to the solar plexus could be a good shot for Manny Pacquiao. I think Manny Pacquiao in the Adrian Broner fight actually showed some real good body work, some really effective body work. He needs to be doing something similar against Keith Thurman. If Thurman's stationary, try not to headhunt, try to mix it up, go down to the body and then come upstairs, variety. But the body work in this fight, I think, will be very important for Manny Pacquiao. If Manny Pacquiao can't get to the body, he could be in trouble because he needs to slow Keith Thurman down. Ultimately, I believe Manny Pacquiao in this fight needs to play the aggressive counterpuncher. He needs to apply steady pressure, like I said, work the body, but look for those counterpunch opportunities. If Keith Thurman opens up, don't be afraid to exchange with him. When Keith Thurman opens up, he's got a horrible habit of squaring up and delivering wide punches, whereas Manny Pacquiao can keep his punches nice and straight when he puts them together. So in the exchange, the straighter punches of Manny Pacquiao will get there first. A straight punch always finds the target before a wider shot. So if there's moments to exchange, Manny Pacquiao needs to take those moments and roll the dice, because I believe he will come off better if Keith Thurman opens up. If Thurman gets aggressive or he starts feeling himself, fight with him, trade with him, and I believe Manny Pacquiao will actually come out on top in those scenarios. Yes, there's a chance he could get caught, but ultimately I believe his speed and superior punch technique will see him through in those moments. So look for those counter opportunities, especially in the exchanges. But anyway, this fight is really hard to call, which obviously means it's a good fight. I've really gone back and forth with myself. Sometimes I'm feeling Keith Thurman on points. Others I'm feeling Manny Pacquiao by stoppage. I've even kind of flirted with Keith Thurman by stoppage. But you guys will want a final pick. For me, I'm leaning towards Keith Thurman in the narrowest of ways. I've got Keith Thurman on points. I just believe his foot speed could be a bit too much for Manny Pacquiao in 2019. But I've got to confess, I'm really not confident in that pick. Wouldn't be surprised if Thurman actually stopped Pacquiao. Wouldn't be surprised if Pacquiao stopped Thurman. I would be a bit more surprised with Pacquiao on points. But ultimately, I believe this fight can go any way. Also, a draw, maybe worth a bet. But there we go. Share your thoughts below. I've got Keith Thurman on points. How do you see